Tensions usually run high in the National Football League, but they're exceptionally high during this time of year because the cut-down date is just around the corner. So it's decisions, even for your fantasy team. All of that we're going to cover on this edition of Defending the Kingdom, and it's brought to you by Ticketmaster.
Holthus keeps it on an RPO at the 5, gets a lead block, he goes into the end zone near side, touchdown, Kansas City!
Hi everyone, I'm Mitch Holthus, voice of the Chiefs, along with senior team reporter McMullen. Yes, we will have ESPN's Field Yates on this episode to talk about fantasy football, which has gone to like way levels. So crazy, you can actually get your doctorate now in fantasy football from any Ivy League school. But anyway, let's deal with reality football first, and that is decisions. As we post this, the Chiefs are getting ready to have their third and final preseason game, the only preseason game at home against the Chicago Bears. But we are getting down to the finals here of trying to figure out the 53-person roster. There is so much that goes into the decisions. We'll kind of dive into that into this episode. But your thoughts overall as we are right here.
Yeah, it's pretty cool because we've been talking about this process for months now, and we love it, right? I mean, it really starts in February with all the reserve future contracts. Then you get into free agency in March, the draft, obviously, all the offseason practices and training camp. And we kind of got to see this team come together and who are some players that we're watching that we weren't necessarily thinking about before the offseason training program began, who surprised us, who disappointed us, all that stuff. And now we have a chance to see what this team will initially look like here in just a few days. It's important to note, though, that as exciting as it is, it's also kind of a tough time in the NFL because over the matter of a few hours, like 1,200 players will be without a job. And it's tough. We talk about how cool it is for so many of these guys that they're experiencing like a lifelong dream of playing professional football. And many of them, this door will close. So I think it's important to remember that. But from a team building perspective, this time of year is a lot of fun. And with the previous thought in mind, there are some players that maybe many didn't give them a chance to make it in the NFL, and they're going to have a shot now to possibly make this team.
One of the blessings that I get is I get to introduce the entire team in front of about 1,200 fans at the kickoff luncheon. And it's really cool, but in the back of my heart, as I'm introducing these guys, I realize that many of them will not be on the team a week from now.
Yeah.
And so one story, a guy named Bjorn Nitmo, I've told you this story before, he worked construction. He had tried out with like 7 different teams. He made our team as a place kicker. And I introduced him like, he's 7 different construction jobs, and Bjorn Nitmo, and he's just pumping his fists in front of thousands of fans, a couple thousand fans. I go sit down, and Marty Schottenheimer is the coach at the time. He goes, I got to tell Nitmo after the dinner he's cut.
Oh, man.
We just traded for Pete Stoyanovich. So, and I saw it in 2013 when we were turning the roster over. 7 guys on a Saturday night thought they made the team. Sunday morning, they were all cut because we were the first pick on the waiver wire after 2-14, and John Dorsey's staff that time, we were just like picking guys, the Magnificent Seven.
Yep.
So this is a time of tension. And so there's a time of anticipation, but dreams are at least delayed, if not dashed, during this time of year.
So I'm not going to say who this player was, but I saw this happen at training camp on the last day. He was walking down the hill, and his family was there in the VIP area. And for a lot of players, the last day of training camp is a celebration because you're getting out of there, you're done living in the dorms, you're going home. For him, he was kind of soaking it in as he was walking down, and his family was right there, and they're like, last day, and you could see it on his face. He's like, yep, last day. And I don't know, that kind of stuck with me where these guys that are kind of on that roster bubble or maybe even beyond that bubble know that this might be it. But at least for a couple months, you were on the Kansas City Chiefs. And again, some of them might surprise some people and make this team or make the practice squad, and you'll see them later this year. But just important to remember that these are human beings and it's not a video game.
Well, one area we don't cut is around the world. So what do you have for around the world today? And I've got a couple.
I've got 8 today.
Whoa, 8.
Yep. For Christian
Fulton.
Yeah. Who is back practicing, and we'll hopefully see him in week 1.
There's also Keyshawn Smith, who's on the offensive side wearing number 8.
Yep. But how do you feel about the double numbers as a radio?
I hate him.
It's
College is the worst. and you can't have them out there at the same time. But the other night, NFL, there is not that rule.
Mm-hmm.
And so on kickoff coverage, I don't know if you saw this, Joshua Williams was standing next to Tyquan Thornton. Two number twos. Like, who's your guess to go make the tackle? But, yes, not a fan of duplicate numbers.
Yeah, I'm glad I'm not spotting for you in the preseason. I get off the hook on that one because that would be ridiculously hard. Okay, so around the world, heard from Carol in Gilbert, Arizona. She was at the preseason opener a few weeks ago. Hi, Carol. Shout out to Claude and Trish in Southwest Florida. They're moving to Aiken County, South Carolina next month. So kind of spreading the kingdom. So good luck on your move. Mitch is in Fayette, Missouri, home of the...
Well, it's home of Missouri Valley. Fayette's Central Methodist. Central Methodist is in Fayette, Missouri.
This might be the high school.
Oh, shoot.
It's alliterative.
You got me.
The Falcons.
The Falcons.
The Fayette Falcons. That's
Not
a good
far
name.
from Columbia.
Yeah, that's true.
Beautiful campus, by the way, Central Methodist.
I remember when, because I went to school at Mizzou, whenever I was like trying to make it, like I stayed overnight at home and I was trying to make it in time, I'd see Fayette and be like, I'm almost there.
Almost there.
Patricia is in Wethersfield, Connecticut. Ever been to Wethersfield, Connecticut?
Haven't. Want to.
Okay, we'll have to go. Richard is in Southwest Texas. Been a fan since the Joe Montana and Marcus Allen days.
Well, that narrows it down.
I think he mentioned he was
600-mile area.
Yeah, he mentioned he was nearby something. I can't remember, but yeah, Southwest Texas. We'll have to get some more information there, Richard. Mark is listening in Regina, Saskatchewan. Yeah,
Our Canadians, hang in there. Canadian Kingdom Defenders.
I have another one for you too. Martha is in Bow Island, Alberta. We're hitting all the provinces.
Go.
Yeah.
Do we sing "O Canada" before the show then?
I think we should. We'll raise the Canadian flag.
Like an NHL game.
Or NBA games, yeah. And then we got another Richard listening from Pekin Community High School.
Pekin, Illinois.
Tradition me.
It's one of those Nevada.
Yeah.
Pekin.
Home of the...
I don't want to tell you what their old nickname is because it was controversial.
Oh, okay.
I think they've changed it.
Does
it start with a C?
No.
Okay.
This one I think is not controversial.
Okay. What is it? They changed it.
This is the Panthers.
Yeah. No, they changed it.
Okay.
And the old one was started with C and then a second an H and then an I and then I won't go any farther.
Redacted.
Yeah, redacted.
Okay. Panthers now.
So. Panthers, good. Pekin Community. Yeah, not far from Peoria.
Okay.
All right. And then I had the great circumstance of being in the Joplin, Missouri, Pittsburgh, Kansas market. Right?
Okay.
It's a whole TV market. And we know Missouri Southern is in Joplin and Pittsburgh State's in Pittsburgh, Kansas, obviously.
Austin Woodard in Joplin.
And yes, most so offensive lineman, but I saw the War Wagon too.
The War Wagon too.
Did I give you the video of that?
No. Oh, yeah, the bus.
War Wagon
yes,
too,
yes.
the bus.
Really cool. Really cool.
Red Flamingo and Red Chef. This is the coolest.
Those are their given names?
I'm going to put this on X. I'll put it on X.
Okay.
And show everybody the coolest Chiefs vehicle I've seen yet. The paint job is amazing on this
They
thing.
funded this thing.
Oh, yeah. They funded it. They're your favorite jewelers there, but I'll go that far. But anyway, you got to see this thing. It's amazing. I'll put it on social.
Okay.
And you guys can make your own opinion. But that was a little piece of Around the World. Before we go to Field Yates and find your decisions that you're going to make for your fantasy team, we'll get to ESPN's Field Yates. Overall, your thoughts on the decisions for this Chiefs team and where you see the most challenging or down-to-the-wire decisions?
Yeah, so this is a good problem to have when you're a really good team like the Chiefs. The reality is there are going to be a bunch of good players that don't make the team, and some players that we've talked about over the last several weeks.
And I've been on the opposite side of that.
Yeah, like we talk about 2013, that's a situation where you're trying to get as many good players as you possibly can. We're in a good spot where we have a lot of good players fighting for roster spots. That competition's a good thing, and they're not all going to make it. And some players that really impressed us during the preseason and training camp are going to go somewhere else and get scooped up. And happy for them. It's a good problem to have for the Chiefs. But anyway, what are some of those position groups? Well, I think we're going to keep 7 receivers. And I think we'll probably end up keeping 4 running backs. I don't know for sure, but that seems likely. So how do you get there? Whenever you keep an extra player at a position, it means you're keeping one less somewhere else. So I think, you probably end up with 9 offensive linemen in that instance. And also you're taking some players away from the defense. So you might end up with 9 defensive linemen. How do you break that up? Is it 5 defensive ends, 5 defensive tackles, 6 defensive ends, 4 defensive tackles? Not sure. We'll have to see how it shakes out in the preseason here on Friday. And then probably like 5 linebackers, I think. I mean, this is what happens. Like, everyone wants to keep as many offensive players as you possibly can. I'm on board with that, but it means that you'll have to keep less defensive players. And last year we did that, where we only kept 5 linebackers. And you have injuries over the course of the year. You have to be prepared for that. So anyway, I think that's kind of what we're looking at. And the question is, who kind of elevates in those groups? Who can earn that last spot? And a running back, is it Elijah Mitchell or Carson Steele? We'll have to see who can earn that spot. At receiver, Tyquan Thornton, can he establish himself on special teams as well? Coach Tope talked about that. He has to have a role in special teams too, and we know that he can have a role on offense, but if you're going to be that 5th or 6th receiver, you got to have a role on special teams. So what kind of role can he carve out on special teams? We'll see more of what he can do against Chicago. And then also, it's another test run for the left side of the offensive line against Chicago. We know, obviously, Josh Simmons and Kingsley Suamataia are going to make this team. They're going to start for this team. But I'm looking forward to seeing one more test run of those guys against live competition, because it sounds like the Bears are going to play their starters early in this game. So it's good reps for those guys.
Yeah. I'll tag with a couple things here. One, keep in mind, last year was this time of year that we actually picked up Samaje Perine and Kareem Hunt.
Yeah, and Juju, right?
And Juju, yeah, all at the same time. So think about what that meant for the 2024 season. So a lot of these decisions for Brett Veach and others may include more than the 91 guys that we're looking at right now. We've also seen some injuries that help bring some stuff into clarity. Unfortunately, Felix Enudike-Uzama put on injured reserve. That kind of solidifies a little bit of the 5-5 or what you do on the defensive front. The other thing is, with the liberalization of the practice squad rules, I've often explained it this way. Your 53-man roster is the nucleus of the atom, but you're surrounding the nucleus all with 16 players that are protons and neutrons that can easily come in and out of your 53-man roster on any given week. We've seen that. There's restrictions there, 4 elevations. On the 5th, they got to go to your 53 or they're gone. So you have to be playing this chess game, a little bit of those guys around the board. So those come into clarity a little bit with decisions. We're going to come back, but you've got to make some decisions. And one guy that can possibly help you, or at least get into the intricacies of fantasy football, is a former Chiefs employee. Yep, he worked in the Chiefs front office at one time before his career with ESPN. We had an awesome visit with Field Yates. Boy, do we have the perfect guest for this time of year for defending the kingdom. Field Yates of ESPN, the savant of fantasy football, and the former employee of the Kansas City Chiefs. We're going back. We're going to start there because we brought you back.
We were trading some stories before this.
Oh, man.
Ooh, man.
It's like homecoming week for you to come back. First of all, your reaction about being back here.
It's incredible. It's actually surreal. I don't recall exactly how many times I've been here since I left the Chiefs in 2011, but it's not many. I was blown away, just by the airport. That tells you, how long it's been since I've been in Kansas City. But just the construction downtown, this place is exploding. But more importantly, this environment around the stadium is still so special and so unique. Matt and I were talking about this when I first got here earlier today, that, when I was here in 2009, coming off of a season in which we had the 3rd pick in the draft, so whatever it was, 2-14, 3-13, something like that.
2-14, if you're keeping track of it.
Yeah, Mitch remembers.
Sure not that I don't have any PTSD
memory right here. Yeah,
but
the passion of the fans coming into that season was off the charts, and it was a fan base that was clamoring for success. Now, clamoring for 5 Super Bowl appearances in 6 seasons it's never happened prior to what the Chiefs are currently or have done most recently. That reasonably expecting that is probably a long shot, but the fan base was just so desperate for a competitive team year in and year out, and it's amazing to see what I would argue are the most passionate fans in not just the NFL, but really any sports team in America getting a team that they deserve, because the success over these past half dozen years, and really further back than that, ever since Patrick became the starting quarterback, Heck, now that I think about it, even before that as well, right? Call it the last decade since Andy Reid was hired. It's just been remarkable to see, and it's cool being back here.
So we were talking about the brain trust that you were around when you first started working for the Chiefs back in 2009. Tell us about that.
Yeah, I wish I could take some credit or say that I knew these guys were all going to go on to what they were doing. But when I first got hired in the summer of 2009, we called the office the Fishbowl, and it was Mike Borgonzi, Ryan Poles, and myself. So I joked with Mike after he got the Titans job, with Ryan, of course, now being with the Bears for a few years now. I group thread on text the two of them. I said, I'm glad to see that at least 2 out of the 3 of us made something of our life. But on top of that, so those 2 guys were there. They were working, and Ryan Poles got hired as a scouting assistant. I think Mike Borgonzi may have been hired as college scouting coordinator, a position that he quickly grew out of because both of those guys were clearly very, very sharp and great evaluators and incredible humans on top of that. But we had Ryan Nutt, who's still here with the Kansas City Chiefs, one of the best evaluators I have ever spent time with in my entire life. And Brant Tillis got hired shortly after that. Brant now the EVP of football operations with the Carolina Panthers, one of the best, smartest cap minds you will ever meet. But there was a time one year where the Chiefs were down to $171 in salary cap space. And there were like 4 big deals that needed to get done. It was like, we got $171 and we have to extend Chris Jones and 3 other notable starters. And next thing you know, Brant Tillis had found his way to kind of undo the knots there and had the Chiefs, as always, in very, very good cap shape. And then on top of that, on the coaching side, the quality control coach, my first 2 years actually, was Nick Sirianni. So everybody has gone on to some really cool success. And I don't think any of us knew exactly what we all had in our future at that time. But I was saying, being 22 to 25 and in Kansas City, we're all having a ton of fun.
I remember the day that Todd Haley dressed up Nick Sirianni as a quarterback and tried to fool the quarterbacks like we signed a new guy.
Yeah.
I mean, that just gives you an indication. You never knew what was going to happen.
Totally. And, Nick did. I'll give Nick some credit, a lot of credit. Nick was he was a great college player at Mount Union, which is one of the great Division III programs across the country. And he was a legit athlete. I remember he would be, as the quality control coach. Some days you're catching passes for quarterbacks for half an hour straight. And he had some of the most reliable hands on the entire team.
Got to tell you, though, this huge pivot career-wise, it's like all of a sudden now you're in that role, and then, wait a minute, he's now the guru of fantasy football on ESPN. Walk us through that, and when was the big, giant pivot?
Well, so I was, I was talking about this with Matt a little bit earlier, is that so I got hired at ESPN 2012, but when I got hired, it was kind of like, we think we can make something out of your skill set here, but we don't know exactly what it is yet. And I think it was 2013. I got called into the office of a gentleman named Seth Markman, who continues to oversee our TV coverage for the NFL at ESPN. And he said to me, I know, Field, that's going to sound a little bit unique, maybe different, but fantasy football might align a whole lot more with your way of looking at football than you realize. And he said, not only can you apply some of your scouting knowledge to the world of fantasy football, but you're going to find that going forward over the next decade, maybe even longer, people are going to crave real NFL content that they can spin into fantasy football with every piece of information you deliver to them. I remember when the Chiefs signed Joe Thuney as a free agent guard, it was what does this mean for the running game of the Chiefs? Does this increase the upside of whoever the starting running back was at that time? And that's the level of passion that fantasy football fans have. And I give Seth a ton of credit for kind of guiding me to understand that. And I'm telling you, without fail, if I meet 100 people on the street during the summer, 90 of those 100 are asking me something related to fantasy football. Usually, who should I take if I have the first pick in the draft? But people love fantasy football. I often remark that it gives someone a vested interest in the game. The Chiefs are playing for something every weekend, but there are fan bases that play or that follow, teams that are probably down for the count by November 15th, and they're sitting there thinking about 2 things. 1, their fantasy team, and 2, mock drafts, right, for the upcoming years. So fantasy football gives you a different way of looking at the game and a different way to be invested in the game. And as the NFL's remarkable growth has continued, it's no surprise to me that fantasy football has grown as well and probably contributed to that growth.
And we're not a great fantasy team because Worthy may have 175 one week and have 1 target the next, but that's by design.
Yeah, well, I keep telling people this, and this has been one of the spirited conversations I've had so far in August, is where do you rank Patrick Mahomes? And I'd say lower in fantasy than in reality. You know why? Because the Chiefs don't need Patrick Mahomes to throw for 350 yards and 3 touchdowns every single week. Last year, especially, was a season in which if you play elite defense, you play opportunistic offense, and you win all like the hitting yardage plays, and you make all these sort of the championship type plays, you're going to win a lot of games, right? Blocking field goals against Denver late in games to grind out a close win, things that maybe go beyond the box score. So if the Chiefs were back in 2018 and 19 when the way that they won was outpacing you 41-26, they'll do that. But we're in a different era of the Chiefs for right now, and Patrick will always put the team in winning first, that he's not going to go to Andy and say, hey, you better start designing a bunch more shot plays for me because my stats are too low. He's motivated by the opportunity to get to a fourth ring.
So the Chiefs aren't a great fantasy team. They're a pretty good football team, though.
I think they have some greatness, though, on that. It's harder to predict as opposed to teams that are not as great real teams, but are very like chalky fantasy teams week in, week out.
Well, what are your expectations for the Chiefs, the real football team, this year, trying to bounce back from what happened at the end of last season?
Very high. There are 5 teams this year that I think if they don't win the Super Bowl, you can basically call the season a disappointment. The team itself may not say that. I think the fan bases would feel that way. And the Chiefs are there until further notice, right? That the Super Bowl is the standard. There's 99.5% good things that come from being one of the most successful teams we've ever seen in league history, and there's 0.5% bad things. The 0.5% bad things are that you have these expectations that you can go 15-2 and not win the Super Bowl, and people can say, all for naught,
forget
right?
about it, yeah.
Yeah, so to me, though, like still a championship caliber defense. The offense, to me, looks more explosive on paper. The reshaping of the offensive line. Josh Simmons was just an unbelievably impressive prospect prior to the injury last year. He was dominant as dominant can be, and by all accounts has looked really, really sharp. I've seen some of the preseason tape, but have read very carefully all the reports from practice, and it sounds like this is a player who is bucking the trend, because it can be hard as a 320-pound guy to come back from a big patella tendon injury. But if the offensive line plays up to expectations, no reason that this team won't be playing big games into January, maybe February too.
I got to ask you, though, theory here. Your favorite? Because I'm waiting for the fantasy league that will really value defense.
Yeah.
He always talks about
those.
I talk about this all the time, right?
Right?
I just somehow you get it closer to reality football.
Yeah.
And there's some leagues that are as simplistic as yards and touchdowns, which people have fun with it. But what's your favorite structure right now?
Yep.
And 2, how do we get defense involved in fantasy football other than sacks and picks?
That's a good question. So I think that what we need to do for defense is we need to reward. So when you start a week, you get 10 points on fantasy. And you start to lose points by yardage allowed or points allowed. We got to either up that number from 10 to 20, or we got to make it less punitive to give up like 7 points. Like a team can allow 10 points, have 3 sacks, interception, which is a great defensive performance, and they get like 12 points.
Yeah.
Like, that doesn't make sense to me. But my favorite structure right now, this is a fun one. I think people should try this. If they haven't done it before, this is something that's gaining a lot of steam, is you call them guillotine leagues, where you begin the season, and whether there's 10, 12, 16, any number of teams, at the end of the week, whoever has the fewest points is gone, and their entire roster hits the open market, so to speak.
Like relegation.
Yes, and everybody else has a budget to bid on those players. So if the team that has...
This is the French Revolution.
Yes.
Like you're cutting heads off.
Yes, every week. So if it's, week 1, somebody who has Xavier Worthy on their team has the lowest scoring output because the rest of their team does not perform, Xavier and whoever else on their team goes to the free agent market, and you get the chance to bid on them, and then just one team stands at the end of the year. Very fun.
Wow.
Yeah.
Maybe we should
That's
do one. What do you
cold-blooded
think?
now. That is cold-blooded, yeah.
I could see you guys getting involved in one of those
I've
leagues.
been-
I'll join you.
I've been joking around with some friends about doing like an all-sport fantasy league. So you have I'm talking about like global sports. So you have like Patrick Mahomes, but you also have like a great cricket player, and you have some guy in F1, and you're staying up till 2 a.m.
I consider myself a pretty big sports fan. I would not like my chances in
It'd
that
be
one.
tough.
It
Let's
would
be
be
honest. The 3 of us are married.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
We would all like to remain married. I think that league
And all sports
would end
fantasy league
like,
might end it, yeah.
Some of your funny
be tough.
stories, some of your funny fantasy stories, including, and I love it. They were here tonight, where the winners are the gals. Like the gals are crushing it. Like there's one league here where there's like 15 people in the league or whatever, and the gals have won like half the titles.
Yeah,
All right, give me some good stories, marriages that have been on the brink or saved, or
I got a good one for you.
Okay.
So one of my other favorite things right now is punishment leagues, where like rather than rewarding your team, I know I got a very sadistic way of looking at life right now, right?
Yeah.
Rather than like the money at the end of the season that you pay at the beginning of the year going towards one person who wins, it's whoever loses who gets the ultimate shame shame. And I play in a league with a bunch of guys, and the loser of the league has to start at a point that is 8.5 miles from a favorite bar of ours. And the guy starts, and he's got an Apple AirTag on him. We have a phone open, and we sit there and we watch him. Because if this guy tries to get into an Uber or borrow some kid's bike or something, we will not let him get on that bike or get in that Uber. So he has to run the entire time. During that time that he is running, the rest of us ordering drinks for the night, and he pays for the entire tab.
Attacked by wildlife.
No, we're not worried about that stuff.
Oh no,
hey, you see, this is like
just
Survivor.
Be better.
Be better. That's right. So
why is there a George Carlin skit in here?
I know there probably is. Right, it's a lot of fun.
The guillotine league.
We just love.
It's
it's
awesome.
great. But and it's certain that league does have a winner's prize as well. It's important to recognize the winners, but it makes for some really wild end of season weeks because you've got oftentimes it's like 2 or 3 teams that are just like hanging on by a thread. And in that league last year, the bottom 2 teams played in a matchup that, like, the loser of that league was bound to run 8.5 miles. And, we've done that back-to-back years, and each of the guys has run pretty well, and both of them say they didn't train at all. But they were each at like an hour and 25 minutes. Which that's pretty,
getting to the bar with your friends is a great motivator.
It really is. Yes. Or keeping that credit card bill very low.
Exactly.
Also worked for him. So that's very
amazing.
Fun. Yeah.
The biggest money pot league you've heard about?
I've heard of guys. I've heard of leagues where it's $10,000 to buy in per person.
So, to buy in.
Just to buy in. Yeah. So
and the prize is
what, $100,000? People are high stakes leagues.
Can you imagine the stress? Like, I can't.
Well, I think my only thought is every time I hear about a $10,000 buy-in league, which those are fairly common now these days, is that it's actually people who just have so much money that for them, like $10,000 is couch change.
That's fair.
So for them, it's cool if they win, but they're more motivated by like the thrill of each week than they are the actual pot of gold at the end of the rainbow there. So those are too baller for someone like me.
Yeah.
I'm trying to, you mentioned keeping the marriage, intact. I'm trying to keep the kids, I'm thinking about the education that's going to cost a whole bunch of money one day when they get to college. So we don't play in $10,000 buy-in leagues.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Why is Daddy down in the closet in the basement again?
The exciting news today is Field signed his extension with ESPN, right? Today.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, I extremely grateful to stay at ESPN. I have only collected a paycheck from 2 places in my life: the Kansas City Chiefs and the ESPN.
Wow.
So
keep
extremely
that keep
and
that
very
going.
cool, very grateful. So I love what I do, and to borrow a phrase that I hear all the time from football coaches, it beats working.
Yep, it
Right?
sure does.
Sure does.
You know my favorite thing about Field, we'll close with this, his connection to the Chiefs is back in the day whenever I would reach out to him and ask if he had time for an interview, he wouldn't ask, the time in Central Time or Mountain Time or whatever. He would say 4 o'clock Arrowhead time.
Arrowhead time.
This guy knows.
Nice.
Noon kick, baby. I used to back in 2009 when you played a lot of noon kickoffs. I think was there like a single noon kickoff game this year? Like,
One.
maybe
I think it was
one,
one. Late in the year, one.
It's unbelievable.
So, yeah.
We appreciate you,
The
Field.
price of doing business. Good to
Awesome.
see you
Field
guys.
Yates.
Thanks for having me on. Yeah.
Field Yates of ESPN, and good luck with your $100,000 fantasy league.
I wish that were me.
Great to talk to Field Yates. I remember him when he was working in the front office or as Todd Haley's adjutant. But anyway, it's fascinating to see how complicated and how intricate fantasy football has become.
Yeah, and it's cool that Field's kind of embraced that. But we were talking about this earlier. It's also cool that Field came from a football operations background. So he, as much as he loves fantasy football and is really good at it, he also loves like real football and understands like how real football can influence fantasy football. So he's great. He's just about the nicest guy you'll ever meet. And I think it's so interesting when he was talking about the brain trust he was around in those early days where you have Ryan Poles right there with you, Mike Borgonzi, Brant Tillis, and these are all future NFL GMs. And then, of course, Field is a future, like, megastar on ESPN. I mean, how cool is that? Like, they're all here in this building in 2009. So it's pretty cool. He's an awesome guy, and loved having him back in town. He hadn't been in Kansas City in a while, and I met him because we had, like, a draft event. That's why he was here, like a fantasy football draft event before the podcast. And I met him in his green room, which was one of the suites on the broadcast level. And he walked in, and he was just staring out at the field like, man, it's good to be back here. So it's pretty cool. Whenever you're watching Field, know that he has a soft spot for Chiefs Kingdom in his heart.
Yeah. AI, dangerous or an asset?
I think it's dangerous, personally.
Yeah, I do too.
I've watched Terminator and The Matrix and all that too many times.
Too many things. Yeah, right. So here's my point. Fantasy football is great. Most everybody plays it, but it can be dangerous. don't let it convolute your opinion of reality football. Patrick Mahomes is a perfect example. He won 17 games last year as a quarterback, 2 in the playoffs, and people thought he had a down year because he didn't win your fantasy league because he didn't throw for 5,000 yards and 50 touchdowns.
It's a team game.
So you got to understand. Field, though, brings some sense to that.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, let's go back to reality football. And we're going to close it out here in the last couple of minutes. The Chiefs have got to get down. There's some time, but honestly, after the Chicago game, this gets really, they've got it pretty much buttoned down on what they're going to do. Or look outside to bring in this year's version of Samaje Perine or Juju Smith-Schuster. But there's also things that come into play here, like if you're a vested veteran and you're on the 53-man roster to open the season, you're paid for all 18 weeks. And so we will see some vested veterans that don't make an opening snapshot of a roster that might be put on, not saying for the Chiefs, but could be week 2, week 3, week 4. But that's just part of the decisions that have to be made. It's not just, oh, you're trying to beat me out for this spot. You've already mentioned the math here. If we're going to keep both of us, then somebody else is going to get left off of linebackers. What does that do for special teams? So the breadth, the length and width and depth of decision-making with this is more than I think the fans realize.
How long do you have to play to be vested?
I think it's 4 years.
4 years?
Yeah.
Okay. And that's the thing, too. You were mentioning earlier about how you can keep certain guys in the practice squad that are veterans and just bring them up. So Deion Bush is out for the year, but he's one of the valedictorians of that, where it's confusing when the cuts come out, right? Because you see all these guys that get cut. And like last year, I believe Deion Bush was cut. But he doesn't go anywhere. It's like, just stick around. And we saw him 4 times down the stretch last year. Yeah. Kind of a core contributor on special teams, even though he didn't make the team. That's why. So I keep all the week 1 rosters from every single year as like reference because it's fun to look back at. I mean, for example, the Chiefs have fielded 10 defensive backs in each of the last like 5 years. So when you're doing roster math, it's like, all right, they're probably going to keep 10. Those numbers fluctuate, but the reason I bring this up is I don't normally look at the initial 53-man roster. I look at the week 1 roster because of everything you're talking about. We talked a few weeks ago about how 30% of the Chiefs' offense last year came from players that were not on the team in training camp. One of them was DeAndre Hopkins. Okay, you trade for him, but the other 3 are the ones that you mentioned, guys like Kareem or Juju, Samaje Perine, players that didn't make this team initially, but ended up being major contributors because we picked them up soon after cuts happened. So something to watch. You know, the initial 53-man is fun to follow, but it's really the days and hours right after the fact that you really figure out who's going to be on this team.
And the 53-man roster from week 1 could change as soon as week 2 when you play the Eagles. And really, in reality now, with the rules that exist, it's a 69-man group to get to your 53-man roster for any given Sunday.
And that's a positive from COVID. If there's any positives, it's that the practice squad totally changed. It used to be just like 6 or 7 players, and it was all young guys.
Had to be young guys.
Yeah, and now the fact that it's almost a taxi squad is a major improvement, I think.
Yep. So there you have it. Field Yates for your fantasy advice, Matt for your reality advice. But for all of us, especially for Brett Veach and his staff and head coach Andy Reid and his staff, the next several hours, decisions.